Hi, welcome to another video on chess about thinking and patterns in thinking. My name is Bharat Divyan. I'm the founder and CEO of Zugzwang Academy. So today's video, I want to talk about how patterns emerge. Now, a lot of us have seen chess and thought about patterns, pattern recognition, and patterns, and these are words that's oft used, almost to the extent of being a cliche. But how do these patterns emerge? And how can we actually identify these patterns? So this is what I want to talk about today. So first let's start with a completely empty board. And my thesis here is that patterns emerge as a result of rules. So the most fundamental rule in chess from which every other rule is born is the rule that the king cannot be killed. It's illegal for a king to be killed. So what do I mean by that? Like, let's say this is the board. This is how the board looks. Um, just for the sake of ensuring that it's correct, let's mention it. Let's put the king here. If this were the board, you can logically conclude that it's right now black's turn to play. Because had it been white's turn to play, then the bishop could actually kill the king, and the king cannot be killed in chess. So rules emerge for logical deduction such as this. The fact that it cannot be white's turn right now. It has to be black's turn because of that one rule. Similarly, rules also brings in patterns. Oh, let's go a little deeper. Now, if I can't kill the king, how do I finish the game? The only way the game can be completed is if I checkmate the king. And what's a checkmate? A checkmate is an attack on the king. So this is an attack on the king. But right now, this attack is not enough because if the king has a bunch of squares around it, let's say that's the 5 in this case, there's only one square that the king can't go to. There are 4 squares that the king can escape to. So it's more like a cat and mouse game. The bishop is giving a check and the king can escape right away. Let's make a small change. Let's introduce a rook here. Now, all of a sudden, 2 of these green squares are going to turn red. Let's introduce a bishop here, and both of this is going to turn red. So now you end up having a checkmate because you have a red box around the king, the 5 circles stopping the king from moving anywhere, and you also have a red arrow. A red box and a red arrow together is what leads to a checkmate. So this is how the single rule that the king cannot be killed has led us to identify a checkmate. A checkmate in which a king is surrounded. He doesn't have any escape square. At the same time, somebody is attacking him. In the absence of the attacker, it could be called a stalemate. Now, it so happens that when you play a lot of games of chess, there are certain patterns that emerges. Now, this is also a pattern, the pattern of 2 bishops checking, kind of creating a checkmate along with the rook. But this is not so common. This is not so often that you see. But there are certain checkmates that often repeat themselves. So let's take an example. For example, let's say the king is here, we don't have the bishops, and the rook gives a check right here. Now, this is not a checkmate. Why? Because one, the king can kill the rook, so this is freely available, and he can also escape to these 2 squares. Now, you could say, okay, let me stop that. Let me bring the king here. That way, there is the red box. The only problem is nobody is supporting the rook. Now, this would be a checkmate if a bishop were to support it. But this means that I have a lot of pieces on the board. But let's make a small change. Let's bring this rook a little bit away. I can still deliver the check while controlling all the squares around him. Now, this is a pattern that repeats itself again and again. And this particular pattern has a name. Back rank mate. Why is that? Because the king is on the last rank of the chessboard, and you have a rook or a rook-like piece which is giving the check, and you have the 3 squares that he can escape to, either blocked or controlled. So let's say the king is far away, but if he had all his pawns here, even this would be a classical back rank mate. Now, this is a checkmate that appears a lot. It appears a lot in chess games. That's why this pattern is something that is easily recognizable, and once you recognize, you'll be able to apply it in your games and be able to see this happening. Now, how can you learn more about these patterns, especially the common ones? And how can you practice yourself to identify these patterns as well as apply that in your games? There are two ways of doing it. One is go to Lichess, go to learn, go to practice. And there are 4 checkmate pattern sections, checkmate patterns 1, 2, 3, 4. Go and check out the patterns here. So you have back rank mate 1. This is exactly what I just showed you right now. 3 pawns, king behind it, rook delivers a check from far away. And you have no square for the king to escape. That's checkmate. Okay, and you can apply this further. For example, here, it's not a direct checkmate. You have to arrive at that point by sacrificing your queen and then eventually get to the same place. So learn, practice patterns 1, 2, 3, 4 is a wonderful way of first learning about these patterns. Once you have learned, if you want to practice, go to puzzle themes, scroll down to checkmates, and here we go. So if you see here, you'll see a lot of similar mates that appear again and again. For example, Anastasia's mate, Arabian mate, back rank mate, Boden's mate. So since we're talking about back rank mate, let's try and solve a few problems. So how does this turn into back rank mate? All I have to do here is if I capture this rook, then queen captures it back, queen captures, and I won't get a checkmate. But I can sacrifice my queen, force him to capture, and therefore I have the same pattern appearing. Look at this. It's exactly what we just discussed about. The same pattern appears. So let's try one more. This is much simpler. It's back rank mate in the sense I could just go here and give a back rank, but we will try to kind of block it. So this might not be a back rank mate per se, except that you can do it in a different manner. So had we directly given a check, that would have been wrong. But now you see the same pattern appearing again. A rook in the last rank, king in the last rank, delivering a check. The rook is delivering a check to the king from far. You have pawns blocking the exit, and it's completely surrounded. So coming back to my thesis, rules of a game, when applied very logically, leads to the point where patterns appear. So if you were to play hundreds of games based on a certain set of rules, now it doesn't matter whether it's chess, whether it's anti-chess, whether you change it into Fisher random chess, or you play a different version of chess like double move chess. You can change the rules of chess and you can have a variation of this particular game, and you would still see patterns emerging. And this is true for games like chess, games like Go. A lot of board games have these patterns kind of emerge. So rules typically leads to these patterns, and being able to recognize the patterns and being able to apply that in your game is what makes you skilled at that particular game. And since this is a wonderful ability in itself to recognize patterns, and pretty much life in itself and all its manifestation is kind of like a game, it's a skill that's translatable. It's lateral. So learning it in chess also allows you to see patterns in many other things, from your academics to your career, to your job, to your school, to your life, to your relationships. At least that's been my personal experience, and that's why I urge every parent out there to introduce chess to their kids, every person out there to learn some fundamental level of chess, because it really, really helps you shape your thinking. More about that in the future videos. If you like this video and would like to hear more about it, please do share your comments, like, subscribe, and share with our friends. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video.